So when I first started out, I was scrolling through the Riot Discord for developers. I saw a lot of these interesting things. I look at this. There's voice sync. This one's talking about icons for ranks. A whole bunch of other interesting apps. And to me, it was daunting to say the least. I wanted to do a couple things on my side, but I didn't even know where to start. So hopefully this video series, well, this episode, if I make it into a series, I'm not sure how long this is going to be, helps you in your development as a developer for Riot games and so on. And hopefully go on to build something great. So here's my idea. I want to find the number of mid, top, jungle, etc. players in Challenger, and then what their most played champion is. So this is just a rough concept, it can be anything. The goal of this is to simply walk you through how to build an app using the Riot Games API. So what we actually need? Well, we need a Riot API key, which is a sort of thing here that tells you, hey, I'm eligible to access this data. Let me get this data, and you use it in your queries to the website, and it basically authenticates you as a registered developer and gives you the ability to access that data. So you just go to developer.riotgames.com and you sign up there, and they just give you a development key. What else do we need? We need some way to write our code. So I prefer the Python distribution Anaconda. You just go to anaconda.com, you go to products, Visual Edition or whatever, and you download it. Nothing too complicated. And then of course, we need a place to store our code. I'm going to be storing my code on GitHub, so you can publicly follow along. It's going to be at github.com/challengermains under my development account. So in summary, what we need is a Riot API key, which tells Riot, hey, we're authenticated, we're allowed to access the data. We need a Python distribution, which says, hey, what allows us to actually code and sort of manage all our packages and so on, and get everything in one place. And then lastly, we need a place to store code, which I'm using GitHub here. Let's say we already have this Anaconda installed. We're going to create what's called an environment. This essentially allows us to manage all of our code and the libraries that depend on it in one place. So if you have to use one version of library in one piece of code and one version in another library, you can just switch through between environments. You don't have to worry about dependencies and so on. So let's go ahead and create an environment. You can do this many ways. There's a lot of documentation on Anaconda. So here's just one way. You just go through here to environments, create, and just call your new environment game. So let's call it my environment. You click create. And it just goes ahead and creates it. So I'm going to fast forward this if this is in the video. Alright, we have our environment. So as I spoke about earlier, this just basically allows us to keep our dependencies separate, makes managing things a lot better, and just overall good practice. Right now there's nothing in our environment, so let's install Spider. You just click on install here. Like I said, there's many ways of approaching this. This is the most beginner-friendly way I found. So this Spider is just a Python development environment that allows us to actually type our code in there. So we want to include this as well as this command prompt or PowerShell, really they're the same, that allows us to install additional packages. So I'm going to fast forward here. Alright, so we have Spider installed. You can see there's a launch button here, as well as our command prompt here. The command prompt basically allows us to install different packages. I just find it easier than managing stuff in the background. So let's check over to our requirements. We signed up for an API key, so we have that. And we have a Python distribution. And we have a place to store our code. So now we want to actually start getting to the coding section. The only issue is, how do we get data from the Riot Games API? Like, how do we make requests to it? Well, thankfully, people smarter than myself have actually written Python libraries that allow us to do this. So I'm going to hop over to GitHub, and I'll be using this library called Cassiopeia. You can read into it, all the documentation's on GitHub, but essentially it allows us to easily manage data from the Riot API, as they tell you right here. And all we have to do is do pip install Cassiopeia. So the way I'm going to do this is launch command prompt here. Yep, so in my environment, I say pip install. I'm going to misspell, it's better to copy it. Alright. And install Cassiopeia. Enter. And it'll install that here. So we're ready to get coding. You may notice that this setup of the whole environment thing was kind of a pain, so there's an easier way of doing this actually. I'm going to hop over to my base environment. All you have to do is download the already pre-configured environment from Anaconda. You can read the documentation here on how to do that, but essentially I already have one out here called Riot Dev, so I'm just going to use one that already exists out there that I've already gone through all the struggle of setting it up. So all you do is type in conda env create with my username and Riot Dev, and this will just create all of what we did, but it does it automatically, so it's faster, easier, and makes your life a lot better. Alright, so it's all installed, so all you have to do to activate it is, as it says, conda activate Riot _ dev. And we can do anything there. Or, simple method, go here, boom, Easy. Alright, so since we have everything set up, let's hop into coding. We'll do this by launching Spider. So let's make a file. As a reminder, let's paste our idea so we can remember that. And let's call this get challenger info, I guess. Alright, so let's get to coding. And let's do this by looking at an example on Cassiopeia. So let's just straight up do this here. So it says here, first, we need an API key. So we do this by going over to the developer portal and use it here. So I don't really care since I'm going to be refreshing this API key, but in general, you should not use this API key in a publicly available product or have it publicly available on GitHub, because anyone who has this API key can pretend to be you and pull data. So do not, I repeat, do not put this out in the public. I'm only doing this because by the time this video gets published, this will not be my API key since it expires on the 7th, or I can just refresh it here. So let's replace out the API key, and let's see if this runs. Wow. So it says, Katori is a level 151 summoner on North America. So we know for a fact now that this works. So let's first start by getting rid of our API key that's right in the code, because we don't want that to accidentally end up on GitHub. So I'm going to do this by saving my API key in an external text file that I do not have on GitHub that's on my local computer. So this way, when I upload things to GitHub, this does not get uploaded and it's not actually in the code anywhere. So I'm doing this right here. This is a bit of code, and it's basically a function that says get an API key, check this file up here. Alright, so basically what this does is it calls a function here, returns the API key, and then dumps that into cache to set the API key. So let's see if this works. And it does. Alright, so now we know everything's set up, good to go, we can get into coding. I think I'm going to split this into 2 videos, so the first video will just be set up, and our next video will be talking about how to actually implement our idea up here of finding these players. So, I'll catch you in the next video.